Hello, my name's JP, I'm a composer and producer, and today is such a good day because I've got 3 instruments from Music Broth that I'm going to use to make 2 tracks with. We're going to go through some writing and some mixing and just generally see what happens, so let's have a look. Okay, so I think I've got 2 ideas. I think I want to do kind of one sort of ambient, simple-ish guitar piece, and then the other I kind of want to take in a sort of electronic and beat direction. I don't know if that'll work, but we'll see. Let's have a look. Alright, so what we have here are my guitar parts. It's actually the same part, but I've just recorded it twice and then panned one far to the left and then one far to the right, and that gives us this really nice sort of stereo image. And in addition to the panning, I've got an EQ. I've just rolled off some of the low end and a little bit of the mids just to kind of clean up the sound just that little bit. I think I want to add a piano to it.
A few moments later.
So now I've added a piano to the mix. Basically the piano is just copying the guitar chords really, but with sort of an additional right hand sort of melody line. You'll see here I've got a track muted, and this is my sidechain kick. I've basically programmed the kick to trigger the compressor on the piano, and this will give us a really fantastic pumping sensation. Yeah, fantastic. Gives us a lot of, really a lot of drive and energy. So I'm going to keep working on this. Alright, so you'll see I've kind of fleshed out the whole piece. I think it's done. So let me take you through it. First off, we have our guitars kind of hidden away. So that's the idea we started with. As you can see, I've got a sidechain triggering the guitars, kind of giving that nice pulse. Same as we did with the piano. Let's listen to the pianos and guitar together. So that was our sort of original idea, translated onto the pianos. And now it was just a matter of fleshing out what we wanted the rest of the piece to be like. So I've got this sort of opening semi-ambient section. So we've got quite a bit of stuff going on actually in this intro. This was all led by the Music Broth instruments that I had. So we've got the cello, all kind of, I've recorded a whole bunch of different textures and stuff like that, and kind of chopped it up, pitched it around. Just adds a real richness and depth. I've got all of these tracks from the Fuyara and the cellos. They're all going through a reverb send and also a delay send, kind of giving this lovely stereo image and kind of this gentle warble. Lots of textures, very dreamy, and this pairs really, really nicely with this Native American flute that I got from pianobook.com. I would really recommend you checking out Pianobook, and it's full of absolute gems like this one. I've also got another one, also from Pianobook, AM Static Voices. So on top of all of those textures, we've got a couple of other things going on. My kalimba, which I recorded and kind of just panned all over the place, very aleatoric, but again, a really nice texture. And we got that paired with this lovely Cortales cloud. A few piano chops, just to kind of ear candy things up a bit. Got a sort of inhale, or an exhale rather. A couple of percussion hits. And then this piano, which I've sort of layered a whole bunch of effects stuff on. And all of that sort of blends in to make our intro. So then we start to introduce our first piano line. All of this supported by a kind of ambience, which is very gently kind of building. We've got a couple of other sort of Atmos chops. I think this is of a cafe recording. And also, when the pianos come in, we start introducing our kick. But obviously you can't hear the kick, but it is triggering the sidechains of some of the other parts, and that's giving us this lovely pumping. And finally, we introduce the instrument that started it all, the guitars. And as we move into the verse, I've just got this mute automation going on the stereo out, so that's muting everything really hard. Just gives us such clarity between the sections, kind of that lovely build, complete silence, and then everything comes in. And now this is something that I've seen a lot of people sort of not take the time to do when producing music, but actually it's really important to kind of keep the mix really nice and tight and clean, and that is actually to put a sidechain compression on your reverb. So we've got our reverb here, and I'm just adding this sidechain to gently pump the reverb, and that kind of just locks everything to the kick and really brings sort of the mix together and helps clean up any sort of muddiness. And let's have just a quick look at some other things I've got going on. I've got this little pop to emphasize the transition. Oh yes, our little doos. Again, just me and a microphone. I've chopped it up. Kind of robotic and rhythmic. And that turned out really nicely, actually. It's just kind of different pitches, panned left and right, and one in the center. And of course, we can't forget about our basses. We've just got a sub bass for now. I introduce a second bass later, just to kind of layer it in. But what I've done here is to kind of make things really, really tight, is I've used a noise gate. And again, I'm using the kick drum to trigger the noise gate. Again, sounds complicated. It's very, very simple. But every time there's a kick drum, the bass is going to play it. And this creates a really, really tight bass and kick sort of interaction and kind of very tight bed for the rest of the piece to sit on. And then I suppose we move to the bridge of this piece. We bring back our kind of cello fuyara textures. And then we move on to kind of the second half of our piece. This whole part is much more rich, and there are a few more layers starting to be worked in. Things start to kind of build and drive a little bit. So I've introduced this rhythmic percussion. We've got our second bass has come in just to kind of bulk up the sound, just that tiny touch. We've introduced what I've called a hi-fi piano. And it's just a piano with a very drastic low cut on it, and that is really giving us kind of these sort of ear candy moments that accentuate different rhythms and different parts of the melody. And we also have our really chopped up beat here. It's kind of glitchy. I've just chopped up a whole bunch of beats. This is actually a stapler, I think. And we've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on from various logic loops that I've chopped up. I've got our static voices to kind of give us this beautiful sense of almost sighing into the final section. And the final section is much like before, but certainly pared back. It kind of references the intro and brings back some of that sort of textured ideas. We've got our piano, which provides the melody, slowly kind of getting more and more calm and less processed. And finally, I just want to talk quickly about my mastering chain. I'm going to make a whole video about mastering and how to make your track sound as good as possible in the mastering stage. But here, let me just take you through a little bit what I've done. So I've got an EQ here. I'm just rolling off a bit of the mids. It looks drastic. Again, it's really quite subtle. A couple of little high-end boosts as well. I've got a compression just to even out the sound a little bit. Here is what it sounds like with and without. So it just provides that gentle tightness to the whole sound. I've also got my trusty Gullfoss EQ. Really helps kind of tidy up the sound a little bit. And also on there I've got my limiter, which we will talk about in a future video in depth. So there we go, that is one of the tracks I've done, all inspired by the Music Broth instruments, and the cello and Fujara flute just really add this very human kind of element to all of this electronic stuff that's happening. So let's have a look at our next piece. Alright, it's a few days later. I've been working away on this second track. Much of the stuff is quite similar to the previous piece in terms of kind of techniques and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit shorter, but let's have a look. So first off, we've got this guitar which provides the bass for the entire piece. And to record it, what I did was I basically let my recording run while I just played through different ideas and came up kind of with different sections and stuff like that. And then after that, as you can see, I've chopped up all these like different sections to fit kind of my my structure of the piece. So very simple, but really quite lovely, I think. I've got a compressor just to even out the sound, EQ taking out some of the noise from the room that I recorded it in, taking out the low end, giving it a little bit of a high boost there as well. Lower down we've got our synthesizers, and these are basically just providing a really rich bed, very subtle again, just some kind of automation just to weave them in and out of each other. We've got an electric guitar that kind of doubles this guitar and just provides that really nice richness. And very subtle, just providing kind of this extra layer on top of everything else. So as you can see, this was a really simple process, this one. I basically just let my recording run for the guitar and then chopped up into different sections what I kind of liked and removed what I didn't. And then from there it was just about layering everything in. So my synthesizers provide this beautiful bed the cellos provide kind of these melodic lines, and then we have the guitar and piano on top just to kind of accentuate some of the chord changes and stuff like that. And then we draw out the melody with these kind of beautiful sort of swarming textures. Let's have a listen to this. Yeah, I really love those sounds. Have a listen. That provides a real movement and kind of swell and pullback as well for the piece, which I really love, and it's befitting of the title of the piece, which is Open Water, I call it. And then we bring a bass in towards kind of this later section, helps really kind of just anchor things together. Some more cello textures just there. So we've got those cello textures alongside our more melodic cello lines. And finally, on each of these sort of transitions into a new section, I've got these really quite big sub-hits that are just providing these gentle kind of accents into each of the verses. And then finally, just a really subtle hint of our Friara flute that just kind of pushes things gently into our kind of outro. So there we are. I really hope you enjoyed this video and maybe it gave you an insight into music production and writing. As you can see, kind of there are no rules. It's just important to start making some sounds and see what happens. And just enjoy yourself and try some new ideas. A huge thank you to Music Broth for sending me these instruments. I've had an absolute blast using them. And I hope you learned something with me along the way. I'll see you next time. Thank you.